to another episode of Wow You Can Cook. Today we are making marinated red onions, and there are two versions. There is a marinated version and a toss and serve version. I'm going to go ahead and go over the ingredients real quick. Now, the ingredients for each version are similar, but the measurements are different, so that's why I'm going to go over both of them. For the marinated, you're going to want 1 red onion, peeled and thinly sliced. You're going to need a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, 6 tablespoons of olive oil, and 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. If you are doing the toss and serve version, your ingredients are going to be a large red onion that's going to be halved and thinly sliced, a 1/2 cup of red wine vinegar, 3 tablespoons of sumac, 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, and your last ingredient is 2 tablespoons of finely chopped fresh parsley. And that is what you're going to need depending upon which version. So, Miss Gloria, Miss Dr. Gloria, it is your show.
And it's number, I was just reminded.
Number 22.
Number 22. Welcome, everybody. So today, we're going to make one of my favorite fast dishes. There will be a third recipe. I think Dawn's the only one that came on last, that I'd like you to have something to write with, so that you can take that last recipe down, because I didn't put it in this particular one. The two that you're doing today, or that are already written, are very different in flavor, extremely different. One you let marinate a little longer. It's got all of the olive oil. Here is what Brian did. He made them for me this weekend because I didn't have time. Oh, I've got to get it on the camera here. Where do I place it on the camera? Front of my face. Okay, yeah, can you see? It's kind of dark. Yeah. But you see that I recycled a pickle jar, because I love these pickle jars that we buy, and they're made by a local place here in Texas for the grocery store that we buy from HEB. Let's see if I can show you the jar again. Why am I not getting the jar? Let's see.
Hold it in front of you.
Okay, right in front of me. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think that works.
There you go.
Thank you. So you see that it is, it's darker because it's got the olive oil, but I got to get it there. But what is important is that the onions are down here and the oil is quite a bit above it. It's about a good 1/2 inch above the onions. Why? Because this jar was full, and Brian made pizzas, gluten-free pizzas for us yesterday on a new recipe we were trying out. And he used that many onions, which is about 2 inches, on his pizza. So, but you always have to make sure, the main thing is, if you don't pound them down really well, when you jam them into the jar, and make sure your jars are sterilized, just put them in a pan where the water's above the jars and let them boil, and then let them cool. But always make sure that the oil or the vinegar brine that you use is always well above it. Doesn't have to be a 1/2 inch, but everything has to be submerged. Why? Because you'll form mold. Mold forms very easy because you're not using a pressure cooker. You're not using a canner. You're doing it the quick way. So by doing that, you can't make 12 jars, put them in your basement if you have a basement, or your pantry. These are meant to be eaten within 2 weeks to a month. So we always date ours. And any time that you eat a quick pickled onion or vegetable of any kind, when you open the jar, obviously it's been refrigerated, make sure that you look inside. Because if your jar isn't sterilized properly, or the lid, you could form mold. Okay, so make sure. And if you do have mold, you've got to throw it away. It's not like you can rescue it. Okay, so the first one you're going to make quickly, because all you're going to do is mix. If you've got your directions there in front of you, you're going to mix the olive oil. I've got to get my directions out so I don't misguide you here. Um, do you have your jars sterilized? Those of you cooking? Sandy, do you have yours ready too? Do you have
Yes.
your oil mixed? Okay, so then you have the um hold on a minute. Lena's already given us the directions. Okay, so you have your, and it doesn't, remember, this is the guide. It's not like, oh, you screwed up because you did this before that. This is the easiest way to be able to pickle or marinate onions or any vegetables. Magda, you asked me a question.
Yeah, can you use this recipe for other vegetables as well?
Yes, and let me tell you what my experience has been. I don't like white onions in it. It's a whole different flavor. It doesn't mean you can't do it. You can always experiment with a small jar, same mixture with the olive oil and the vinegar and all that, and try it. But I don't like it without the red onion. Okay, it's a very different flavor. I've done beets with the same recipe that we're talking about in the first one, which is the one with the red wine vinegar, the oregano, and the olive oil. That's a true Mediterranean recipe. Cucumbers are fabulous, but they have to be paper thin. They have to be just like you use on a mandolin in the real thin setting, almost transparent, so that they pickle correctly. I've done carrots. I've done asparagus, the baby asparagus in the spring when they first come out. Oh my gosh, are they good? I've done beets. I don't like beets as well, but you can do them. It just depends on your flavor. The thing with this one is the salt. Make sure that you if you use a quarter teaspoon of salt and you're doing it in a big jar, when you make your mixture, before you add all the onions, taste it. You may need a little more salt, a little less. As I said yesterday, it was a little bit too salty when I did the taste test, so we added more oil, more ingredients, okay? But that is a personal preference. Some people like their pickles real salty. I don't, for instance. But cucumbers sliced very thin are really good. And one thing that I experimented with years ago that I didn't think I'd like, and it was amazing, was zucchini. If you love zucchini like I do, slice it thin. It comes out almost like pickles. But with that oregano and the olive oil in it, it's amazing. So with this recipe, remember, you can put it on your counter for 30 minutes and eat it an hour, 2 hours later. And then once you get the intensity of the flavor that you like, then put it in the refrigerator. Don't let it sit out. And it'll be good anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. Okay, so that you can, but always date. Hello, Edita, Judy, Nancy, Deb, welcome. Oh, I see Steph down here. Okay, so what I'm saying is that remember that this is a guide. If you like it a little saltier, put more of the kosher salt. But whatever you do, when you make something homemade like this, always date it. And I put a little painter's tape on it with the name of the recipe or the ingredients. Let's say somebody comes to dinner and you love these pickled onions, but they're allergic to oregano. You can't just automatically serve it to them. So the main thing when you make something like this is make sure you put the ingredients on. Just write it on a little label. And I like the blue painter's tape. On this one, Brian did it on the label. You'll see the label, the painter's tape. See it? On the label, and then we use these big jars that we buy pickles in because they take the heat. They are for canning, even though I couldn't find I couldn't get to my canning jars. So as long as they take heat, you're okay. Yeah, Magda, go ahead.
So you mentioned beets. I love beets. So if you use,
I do too.
Yeah, if you use beets, do you have to boil them first? Because they're pretty hard, aren't they?
Yes, you do. You have to parboil them or steam them. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
but get them where they're al dente.
Okay.
They're a little crisp. You don't want them mushy.
No.
But yes, that's a good question. You do have to. Sometimes the asparagus, hi Judy. Sometimes the asparagus, if they're not the tiny ones that come out in the spring, they can be tough. So I steam those a little bit.
Okay.
Just to get them to where the pulpy part is a little softer. Then you can do green beans, for instance. But here's a hint. Write this in your notes if you would, since we're talking about several ways of pickling. If you love green beans, you use the French cut them lengthwise, but make them like the old-fashioned Southern recipe, dilly beans. Instead of the oregano, do dillweed, fresh dillweed, and lots of black pepper, and they're absolutely amazing. Dillweed, just a big chunk of it, a handful of it. You don't even have to chop it. Just put it in the jar, jam it all in with the back of a wooden spoon or whatever you have that's a blunt instrument. It sounds like a crime. Use a blunt instrument to shove it down. And then Brian's laughing in the background here. And so get it down so you get all the air out that you can. Okay. And then that way, you know that you're not going to give as much of an opportunity for mold to form. It's when the air is there or the jar isn't sterilized properly that you get mold. So those are different variations. Dilly beans are really good. So Magda, if you're using the beets, you can try a small portion with the oregano if you love oregano like I do.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, use the same recipe and use whatever spice you like. With the beets, sometimes a little bit of cinnamon and allspice is good.
Oh, wow, that's different.
See, and you leave out the oregano. So experiment with it, but don't make huge jars of it when you're experimenting. But
Right.
sometimes I would make a big quart and go, oh God, I really don't like that. And I hate to waste it. So
Yeah. Okay.
when you're experimenting with something you haven't done, make a small jar to begin with. Just make sure you label it, the name of it, the date, and the ingredients, because there's only 4 or 5 ingredients in pickling. Okay, so go ahead, Linda.
What would you suggest with the carrots? Still use oregano?
I know I don't like oregano with it. With carrots, I like parsley. A little bit of rosemary is delicious in it. And remember that the fresh rosemary is always better. I love dried rosemary and thyme, and I use a lot. But if you can get fresh rosemary when you're pickling, it's a whole different flavor than the dried ones, okay?
And what about the zucchini?
I think it's about the same. You should use the rosemary and probably and use a lot of peppercorns. Like when you get pickles and you got all that peppercorn mix. And you can actually, for all of you, you can actually buy the mix for pickling, you know, that has all the different colored peppercorns and stuff. You can buy those little mix packages. Use that. Those are great. And what you can do is put them between a towel and, again, take your frustrations out, pound them in the towel a little bit. You don't want to grind them, but pound them so that you crack open some of the peppercorns, because they have all those rainbow colors that make it really pretty. And then you can put it into your jar for pickling. Okay? Sandy, what stage are you at, dear heart?
Oh, I've got it all mixed up.
You got it all. You're all mixed up. Okay. So
I'm
if you're
all mixed up.
do you have it in your jar yet?
I haven't put it in the jar yet.
Okay, go ahead and put it in your jar and jam them down. Get all the air out that you can, okay? And then pour in your solution. Now remember, depending on the quantity you're making and depending on the size of your jar, you may have to add more olive oil. You may not have enough liquid. Okay? So that's why I say start out with smaller jars. Don't go out to a great big quart and then you don't have enough liquid because you have to keep making more.
Right.
Oh, okay. So is anybody making the second one with the sumac?
What is sumac?
Remember, we used it in another recipe. It's that Middle Eastern red spice that's actually a little blossom. Sumac you can buy on Amazon well, I couldn't get it in my grocery stores. I had to get a little pack at Amazon. It's not expensive. Didn't you get some, Linda? One of you bought sumac. Did you get? No, you didn't. Who got sumac?
No, Jill had her own.
Oh, that's right. Jill had sumac. That's right. So sumac is, if you're going to make the other recipe, I would wait until you have sumac, because sumac makes a whole difference. Sumac is the spice blend that I talked about. That's like little, I want to call them little berries, like little blossoms, miniature blossoms. And that's what you can use instead of paprika. Like when you make an egg salad or you make deviled eggs, sprinkle some of that. It's not a nightshade and it's delicious. It's got a real, sorry, I don't know who's calling. It's got a real spicy flavor, kind of an earthy flavor. A lot of Middle Eastern dishes, East Indian dishes will have them, Moroccan dishes. So get yourself a little pack. I think I put the name in here. Hold on. I'm almost sure I did because I bought it at Amazon and somewhere I said, hold on a minute. Lena, do you see where I put about the, yes, it's sumac is a
Spice Way.
Spice Train, Spice Way. Okay, got it.
Spice Way on Amazon.
Yes, thank you, Linda. Spice Way sells, what I like about them is I know how they grow everything. They have little vacuum sealed, like aluminum packages. It's not aluminum, but you know what I mean. Silver packages that are vacuum sealed. And you don't have to buy a big quantity. They come in small little packets and you can get them on Amazon. It's amazing. Anything that you can buy from that company, I encourage you to, because they're very particular about how it's grown, how it's harvested, where it's sourced from. So that's a company that if I can find something in Amazon on that company, that's where I buy it. Go ahead, Linda.
Do you ever put like stevia or monk fruit if you like things a little sweeter?
You can, and that's my next recipe. You beat me to it.
Okay, cool.
And that's okay. If you want, for instance, Magda, if you make beets,
Yeah.
and some of the beets are not real sweet, but you don't want to add sugars. That's already sugar in beets. Add a little bit of I use the powdered stevia from Trader Joe's. I don't like the liquid. It doesn't work the same in this. And
Okay.
I don't like the flavor of the monk fruit in it. Brian, do you have a minute to bring me the stevia from Trader Joe's, the powder? Yeah, bless his heart. See, he's my sous chef. He's getting ready to go to kidney dialysis, and so he's making his lunch, and he's right around the corner here to bring it to me. Thank you, dear. Appreciate it. So this is the powdered stevia from Trader Joe's. See if you can get closer.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Okay.
I saw that.
It's from Trader Joe's, and it's amazing, but it's so sweet. I have to tell you a joke about the measuring spoon that comes with it, because when I lived in Washington State before I went to Ecuador, a neighbor came over and I was making a dish and I needed to put some in, and she goes, oh! I said, what's the matter? She said, that's cocaine, isn't it? Because the little spoon, it's white powder and the little spoon is that tiny, just the tip of it. And so she was like, what are you doing? I said, no, it's Trader Joe's stevia powder. So we still laugh about it when we email back and forth, because she just saw white powder and a mini spoon and freaked out. Her son had been a drug addict and he was in rehab for a long time. So anything that resembled that freaked her out. Don, go ahead.
So just a follow-up question, would that be a pinch or would that be we were talking about your different little.
You're so funny. And let me see, Brian, can you bring my pinch, my dash, and my little spoons? I should have put them in here. That's a great question. How many of you have bought them already?
I did.
The little spoon set. Did you? Aren't they darling?
Yeah, they're cute.
Adorable. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I would start out with a drop. See, mine has a drop. If not, start out with the smallest one and then taste it before you add more, because you know how stevia gets stronger as you mix it. So start out with what the measuring spoon set says, a drop. And so it's really tiny. I love it because it does say a drop. The next smallest one would be a smidgen, and I think that might be too much until you taste it. Unless you're doing a quart, Don. If you're doing a whole quart, a smidgen would be okay.
Okay.
All right? Okay, so now, if you don't have the sumac and you're not making that recipe, let me give you the recipe for this one that we made yesterday. Look how gorgeous that is. This is what you get in 5-star restaurants that they give you on top of a filet mignon or on top of a piece of fish, sometimes even on a real good hamburger patty. And You see the color there. I mean, it's gorgeous. All it is red onions. They don't change color like they do when you put them in olive oil. Let me wipe my hands here. I'm all wet because I just took it out of the refrigerator. Oh, before I go on to that, when you make the one with the olive oil, I had to take it out an hour before the show because the olive oil does solidify. So make sure that if you're going to serve it, you leave it at room temperature for a little bit, serve it, finish eating it, and then stick it back in the refrigerator. Okay, Sandy, did you have a question, dear?
No, I was
No.
trying to see what you were showing.
Did you see it? Did you see it here? I know your eyes. I know your eyes are bad. So are mine. So let me give
Yeah,
you
and they've
another.
gotten worse.
See,
So
you know, and so have mine. You see it?
yeah, I
Pretty.
see it now.
Pretty colors.
Okay.
Yes,
They're
nice.
real pretty, kind of a raspberry color, I call it. It's not red, but it's very pretty. Okay, so here's the recipe for those. Since we're not going to make the sumac one. Quick pickled red onions. You're going to sterilize your jar, same as always, with the lid. And like I said, make sure that you have a great big pan. Around here, they're tamale pans that you can buy everywhere because everybody in Texas makes tamales. And it's nice because the jars fit in there well. You can fill them with water, put water around them, and it's going to cover the jar. But if you have a canner, big deep pan, or a big you know, the kind of pans that you use to make chili for a lot of people, you have to have one big enough that's going to cover the jar so the water's in the jar and around the jar, and just cover it enough to just cover the lid of the jar, and then throw your lids in there. Okay, so that, and like I said, these pickle jars seal beautifully, even though they're not canning jars. I can use them 2 or 3 times that way with the hot mixture. After that, I can't because the seal won't seal good. Dawn?
Does it matter how long you boil it for, or what do you recommend?
You're talking about the new pickled ones that we're going to talk
The
about?
jars, no, the jars that you're putting in just
The
to
jars,
sterilize.
I usually, you know, the recipe books for canning say 12 to 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
So that's what I do. I set my timer on the stove for, you know, I think if they're bigger, you should go 15 minutes. If they're smaller, these were only done like, you know, 12 minutes because they're not, let's see, how big are these? These are 24 ounces, the pickle jars that we reused. So, okay, got it.
Okay.
All right. So the quick pickled red onions, sterilized jars and lids in a saucepan. This is where you have to cook it. That's why we didn't do it on the show, but you sure can. We have time. And I would really like it if you have extra onions for you to make the slurry, make the pickled, I'm losing the word. Lena, what's not a slurry, the brine, brine, the brine. Okay, you're going to use 1.5 cups of vinegar. And I like red wine vinegar. You can use white wine, but you can even use just white vinegar. But I like red wine vinegar to go with the red one that you just saw. About, roughly 1/2 cup to 3/4 of a cup, depending on your quantity, of water. This is all in the saucepan. I'm going to go slower. Your salt, again, it's like a drop if you've got a measuring spoon. Put in just a little bit, put a pinch in with your hands if you don't have the new measuring spoons, and taste it. Keep tasting it. You've got to get it to where you like it. And the last thing, which is so important, is that powdered stevia that I told you about. You see how simple it is? It's vinegar, water, salt, and stevia.
How much stevia?
Well, that's where you have to figure it out, because I did hold on, is it a smidgen? Hold on a minute. I'll tell you what I did. No, I used more than that because I wanted these to be a little sweeter. I used a dash. Okay. And this is, and I like it sweeter, so don't go by me. This is 24 ounces, remember, not a quart. Lena, you had a question, hon?
No.
I have a
No, I was
question.
trying
So-
to move something on my computer.
Oh, okay. Dawn, go ahead, hon. Just talk.
I'm sorry.
We're
Okay,
family. Go ahead and just talk.
So have you ever tried it with coconut sugar? And is that, because I would think that would be better than doing like a processed sugar, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, stevia isn't stevia is natural. Yes, it has to be taken from the leaf and processed. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You've got to remember that I always have to think about the patients with candida and the patients with blood sugar issues like I have.
Right.
So even an organic brown sugar is really good in them because I've had them that way. So you just have to keep adjusting it. But once it boils, you've got your sweetener, your vinegar, your water, and your salt. 4 ingredients is all it is. Then once it boils, taste it. You want it to be that vinegary taste with that sweet aftertaste. That's the way you want the red onions if you're going to make them this way, okay, the red way, okay? I call it the red way. If you're going to make those, which are my very favorite, you have to be able to have that tartness. The sweetness will depend on you. And I use that amount for just 24 ounces. So I would have used a lot more for a quart. Any comments or questions?
So is this
Okay,
for
so you
one
let the,
onion?
what was that? 1 onion is what I did. 1 big onion, yes.
Okay,
Dr.
Yeah,
Gloria,
1 big
question.
onion did this whole jar.
okay.
Pardon?
This is Nancy. I have a question. You might have said this, I apologize if you did, but can you use monk sugar instead of stevia? Like a powder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. No, I didn't say that. Thank you. I just don't care for it as much in pickles, in a pickled food. That's why. But if you like the flavor of it, no problem. Just like she said, can we use coconut sugar? Absolutely. Okay, not a problem,
Thank you.
hon. And again, you're going to have to keep tasting it because there's no way to give you an amount. I don't know I like things a little sweeter. And what I love about this is they're sweet. First of all, you taste the vinegar, the tartness, and then you taste the sweetness. And that's what I love about it. And this is the way they make them in Germany. Very simple. They make them, all of my friends that have spent time in Germany or lived in Germany or are German, always make them like every week. That's kind of their weekend thing. They make their onions for the whole week. They're delicious on anything, on salads, on burgers, on pizza. Like I said, Brian had of the jar, probably 2 inches on his gluten-free pizza last night. I didn't have any on mine because I had sauteed ground chicken with onions and garlic that we used as a topper for me. And so I didn't need any more onions. So, okay, so you're going to boil the brine. Remember, that's called the brine, B-R-I-N-E, which is what you're boiling in order to put into your jar for the red onions. Let that boil. And while that's boiling, take your very, very thinly sliced red onions. I mean, paper thin. These were done on a mandolin and they're literally almost transparent. And the thinner you can get them, the better taste because everything penetrates. So then jam them into your sterilized jar. Get all the air out that you can. Use any blunt instrument to be able to get them down, or you can buy that instrument that's wood, a mallet, to be able to pound it that you can get on Amazon. It's for canning so that you can push things down. It's wood and it's flat on the bottom. So it's like a plunger, okay, to get all the air out. It's a great investment. They're not expensive and it never wears out. So once you pound them in as much as you can and your brine has boiled, it doesn't have to boil 15 minutes, just 2-3 minutes to a full roaring boil, okay? Then make sure that you don't burn yourself. And obviously you're using jars that are heat resistant, like the ones I used or the regular canning jars. Then pour your brine into your onions. Make sure that they're all covered. And if some of them start to float a little, pound them down again. You want to get it as packed as you can and make sure that the liquid covers all of the onions in the container, in the jar. If you leave room, you're going to leave room for bacteria. That's why that wooden plunger is so effective, because you don't have to guess. But sometimes you can use the back of a wooden spoon. I mean, it just depends. It's not, the reason I don't do that is because it's not big enough. you know, the little round ball at the end of the spoon, but this one is a blunt instrument. So I'm committing murder on my onions here. Okay. So is anybody going to make those today? You're going to do the brine, which takes you 5-10 minutes? No?
Sometime
Nobody's
this
going to
week.
cook the brine. What was that, Magna?
I'll make them sometime this week.
Okay, good. Then you can report to all of us next Monday. Okay, so those of you that made the first recipe, well, I love it because you can give us a report like that was great, but, you know, or I had to do this to it. It gives it, we all learn from it. Like I said, Brian followed my recipe to a T yesterday when he made the ones with olive oil. And he said, come taste this before I put it in. I said, oh no, it's too salty. You've got to add more oil. So he did, and it was fine. Okay, who's ready to taste their onions? You only need them 10-15 minutes in the because you're using the first recipe without the recipe
Sumac.
without the sumac. Yeah, and I encourage you all to get sumac if you want a little bit of that earthy flavor with instead of paprika, and you want the color. It's beautiful to put on salads, on, like I said, on egg salad, on deviled eggs, stuffed celery. You know how sometimes you'll make a stuffed celery hors d'oeuvre with different cheeses as an hors d'oeuvre. That is beautiful sprinkled on top instead of putting a nightshade, which would be paprika or cayenne. Okay, so who's got theirs? You what?
Good. It's good. It's not too sour. It's a little bit, yeah. You can really taste the oregano, which I like. I like that combination.
And how long were they in the solution?
About 15 minutes.
Okay, so if you leave them out like another hour, Magda.
Okay.
Okay, and let them continue to ferment. Taste them. You'll see a huge difference, and then cover them and put them in your refrigerator.
Okay.
For whenever you want to eat them. But remember, with the oil, you have to take them out a little while beforehand, okay? Otherwise, it'll all be solidified.
Did you say?
And you
that
did
they
the
have
one
to
with the
float
oil.
in the oil?
Say that again?
Did you say that they have to float in oil or not? Because mine are not. I see the oil on the bottom here, but it's not
Let's see.
like here it's dry. So
No, it's got to have enough oil to cover all of your onions.
add more oil.
You have to add more oil.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where there's a problem. If you don't have all of the vegetable covered, that's when you can form mold. You need to have it covered because the vinegar or the olive oil and all that protects it and keeps the mold from, not that it still can't form depending on your environment and everything, or your jar, but yeah, put some more in, Magda. That's not quite enough. But how do you like the flavor then? You like it with the oregano?
Yeah, I love it. It's different.
And how it's very different. And how is the crunchiness? Are they a little soft or are they real crunchy? Like they shouldn't be like a regular raw onion. They should
No,
be a
like
little
medium.
softer than that.
Medium.
Medium. Okay. Sandy, how about you, dear? Do you have yours in there?
Yeah, mine's in.
Oh, okay, good. See, look at Sandy, put it up to the camera more. See,
Oh,
Sandy's
yeah.
is completely covered.
Oh yeah.
See? That's what you want. You want the oil or the brine, whatever you're using, to completely cover it.
And if I would want
And
to
Magna, it wouldn't.
sour, can I add more vinegar?
Yes, I was just going to say you can add a little more vinegar because you added more oil. Absolutely.
Okay.
That's where your preference comes in.
Yeah.
Sandy, how is it?
It's good. I'm gonna add a little more vinegar. And I had
Okay.
to add some more oil because they were kind of salty.
See what I mean about the saltiness? So you really have to start out figuring it out yourself.
Yeah.
And what about the oregano? Did you like the oregano in it, Sandy?
I do. Yes.
Okay. So you
Yes.
see why Brian liked it on his pizza, because oregano kind of goes with pizza, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and he put tons of them on his, and along with his pepperoni and all that, which I can't eat. So we always have to make two different pizzas. His pizza crust was the one that from Char, SCHAR, that I love, that is gluten-free, that you can buy in your grocery store. Mine was from Trader Joe's, the cauliflower pizza crust. And it's delicious. I mean, it has no carbs at that point, just whatever the vegetable has. So we always have to do 2 when we do pizzas, because I can't eat what he eats, and he wants all the stuff on it that I can't have. So
Yeah, me too.
so we do. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, so who's next? Linda.
Crunchy, but not like a raw onion. And I really
Okay.
like the red vinegar, that taste that comes through. And the oregano's great. Yeah, they're good.
Okay, so another question, ladies. Here's something that you need to understand. I bet you used the dried oregano just the way it comes from the store, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Next time you make it, put that in a coffee grinder or a spice grinder and grind the heck out of the oregano. The flavor changes again. This is something we all need to learn, because when you crack open a spice, like if you use a mortar and pestle, like my mom used to, you're cracking open to releasing all of the flavor of that herb. So if you put it into, like I said, I have every gadget you could imagine. I have the coffee grinder for spices and herbs. I also have like a NutriBullet, which does a really good job. And grind it next time. Then put it in, and you'll see the difference. And you may have to put a little less in. Start out with a little bit less oregano because the flavor is more intense. Okay? It's just like when we make the homemade ranch dressing that I've given out the recipe for to all of you in the past. We were making it in the coffee grinder, the peppercorns, the nice organic peppercorns. And it was great. Well, then Brian made it one time, and he did it in the NutriBullet, which makes it more of a powder. And I said, "Oh my God, it's so hot I can't eat it." It was like he had put cayenne pepper in my ranch dressing. And I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I didn't do anything different." Yes, you did. And so here I am, discussing with him that it was so hot that it was burning my mouth. And he finally realized that it was because he used the peppercorns in the NutriBullet, and because it powders them, it releases all of the spiciness and the flavor. So we liked that flavor better, but he had to cut way down on the recipe because it was so hot it was burning my mouth. So we kept arguing back and forth. Yes, you did. What'd you do different? So just know that when you want an intense flavor, use less of the herb or the spice. If you're going to grind it in like a little spice grinder, or I have a spice grinder and I don't like it as well. I prefer the NutriBullet type of, mine's not even NutriBullet, it's some generic brand from Amazon, but it works really well. It comes with a small cup and then the bigger one, like to make a smoothie. But boy, does that thing grind stuff. My goodness, it's powder. You put in kernels of corn and you got corn flour and nothing flat. Okay, so just remember that trick. Okay, so Linda, you like it? They're not like raw onions, are they?
No, I'm going to have a salad for lunch, so I'm going to cut some up for my salad.
Oh, yummy.
Good. Now, you all learned in this class what shallots were. Remember, people weren't sure what shallots were when we had it in the recipe? And I said it's a combination of a garlic and an onion flavor.
Right.
So for all of you like me that love the onions, I can't eat raw onions. My digestion doesn't like it. But when I pickle them, I can eat them, which is how I started doing it. Shallots are delicious. But it just takes a lot of shallots to get like a 24-ounce jar. But so just, you have to sit there and peel the darn things, but they're delicious. It's a whole different flavor. And so you might want to try a small jar of shallots rather than a big one, and just adjust your ingredients so that you have enough to cover it in the jar. I've done small jars like like the size of a Dijon mustard jar, that size. And when I'm not sure of if I'm going to like the flavor or I'm trying something new. So don't be afraid to experiment. But the one thing I've done wrong many times in the past is that I didn't write what I did. I thought, oh, I'll remember what I did with the shallots. And then Judy's shaking her head. She's probably done that too then, right? And then you go, oh my God, that was so good, but I don't remember what proportions. Write it down. You can scribble it. I'll give you a hint. I bought the pens that are erasable from Amazon. The erasable ballpoint pens, liquid pens. And so when I have to change something in a recipe, because I date everything and write it on the recipe, I just can erase it instead of scribbling all over
yeah.
like I used to and have these, and having these recipes I can't even read from all the scribbles later.
Wow.
So make a note, put down you liked it, it was too spicy, use less peppercorns next time if using this blender, whatever, but go for it. Sandy, what do you think?
Oh, they're very
Sandy's
good.
the one that gives me my grade. Are you going to try the ones with the brine? I bet you've had the ones before.
I will. Oh yeah, I have. I've had them
You
before,
have?
but I'm gonna make some.
Okay, so if you all love garlic like I do, here's another idea. Make half of your jar of garlic and half of onions, of red onions. That is amazing. Okay, so peel your garlic and cut it in small pieces or in long slivers, however you like it, and marinate the whole thing. It's the same thing. You can use the same recipes that I just shared with you, even the one with the brine for the garlic and the onions, or garlic and shallots, which is delicious if you're doing burgers. I don't eat a lot of beef anymore. My body just doesn't like it right now. But I eat a lot of ground chicken. Like I said yesterday, we sauteed the ground chicken with onions and garlic and put it on my pizza, along with lots of olives and lots of feta cheese, and it's delicious, and lots of ranch dressing. I put ranch dressing on everything, and it was I know pizza sounds weird with ranch dressing, but Sandy, do you do that too? I mean, I just love the ranch dressing.
I do
put
too.
it on everything.
I don't have pizza without ranch.
You don't?
Nope. I gotta have my ranch with my pizza.
See, I'm the same way. And so, Brian's eating his with this much onion on top, and I'm sitting there pouring his ranch dressing on it. So that's what I mean. It's a matter of and I also like it for breakfast. The last little piece of my cauliflower pizza that we had left, I had with a fried egg this morning with ranch dressing, and it was delicious because it had ground chicken. It had all of the onions and garlic already, so this little slice became my protein and my little bit of vegetable carb. So don't get stuck thinking that because a recipe is good and you're afraid to try it, that you're not going to venture out. It's too important. That's where you start having the fun. Okay, make cooking your therapy. You can't think about all the stresses that we're all going through in this world when you're cooking or dancing. That's why I love dancing. And I miss our galloping gourmet because Jill's the one that usually dances back and forth across the kitchen. I know she's in the process of moving. Yeah. So, think about it. When you're dancing, you have to concentrate on your moves. You can't be thinking about the bank account and the laundry you didn't do and your kid that didn't come home until late. That doesn't work. You can't do that when you're cooking either. If you do, you'll screw up and you'll throw it away, because I've done it. So does that help you? Is that a good start for the week?
It is.
To make your onions? Okay, I expect reports from all of you next week. How you used them, how you like them, what you would do different. And Nancy, you're going to make them, right?
I'm going to make them.
Nancy's really great because she watches and learns from us, and then she makes it.
I have to watch. I'm going to watch the replay though, then to go over this again. You guys throw out a lot of information.
Okay, but remember, to throw out the hints, yes, but remember that it's on the website. It's on the QHS website as far as the recipe, except the last one I gave you, which is the quick pickled ones. And that's so simple, 4 ingredients. Let me repeat it one more time for those of you that came in late. Pam, welcome. Did you get the recipe that I gave at the end on the quick pickled red onions? I can't hear you, honey. You're muted.
Yeah, I didn't write it down. I didn't have a pen and paper. I do now.
Okay, let me give it one more time. That's the reason I want to do it, Pam. Okay, they're quick pickled red onions. So you, of course, make sure that you sterilize your lid and your jar. Then you're going to get a saucepan, and all of the 4 ingredients go into a saucepan. It's that simple. Your onions are sliced paper thin. You're going to use about 1.5 cups of red wine vinegar, about 1 cup to 3/4 of a cup of water. That depends on the quantity that you are making. Just, a tad of salt. You're gonna taste the brine. This is called the brine, brine. You're gonna taste that after you add your sweetener, and then you can decide, do you want more salt or not? Okay.
Okay.
And then you're gonna add. I use the powdered Trader Joe's stevia, because they have it in liquid, which I use for most things, but for any cooking I use the powdered. And so just a dab, put some in, let it boil, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. Taste it. It should be real vinegary with that sweetness as a second flavor. Get it to where you like it as far as the sweetness. Jam all your onions into the jar that's been sterilized. Get all the air out that you can. And then pour your brine into it and keep pounding them so you get air out. And then just make sure that all the onions in the jar are completely covered, like this. See it,
Yep.
Pam?
Yes, I do.
It's got to
Thank
be
you.
completely covered. Okay. You're welcome. Does that help?
Yes. I have a question that
Got it?
my mood.
Sure.
I'm not mood again. Because I had heard you talk about, I came in just as you were talking about the jars. Like I have a lot of canning jars and stuff, but you said you use old jars. Do you use the lids over?
Yeah,
too?
look. Yes. You can use them over, depending on the lid, hun. This is a pickle jar. See it?
Yep.
It's 24 ounces from HEB. They are all pickles made in Texas, and HEB sells them at their stores. And I can use them about 2 or 3 times. And then after that, I can't for this because the seal doesn't work.
Okay.
But you can use them 2-3 times. Yeah. So just if the seal grabs real good, you're all right for long term. But if you're going to make these and eat them within 3 or 4 days, don't worry about it. You're not sealing them for a longer term. Okay.
Okay.
And just
Yep,
make sure
that's
that you refrigerate them. But yeah, no, use your jars. I mean, do you have any idea how much jars have gone up? Like if you bought just jars at Amazon, it's horrible. We save every jar that I can.
Yeah. We use all
Yeah,
our,
I do
save all
too.
my jars. I save my jars. It's the canning lid thing, the flat lid thing that I don't, or the tops that come with the jars I don't save. I always use like a.
Yeah, these tops come with the jars, but if they're a nice seal, you can use them a couple times at least, okay?
Okay,
And then
good,
after
thank
that,
you.
use them for whatever. I sometimes use them for canisters, for maybe I don't have a big bag of beans, just a little, then I put them in there. I don't throw any jars away. And don't, because they will. I remember my grandmother saying that during the Depression, people were selling jars. You couldn't get them. You couldn't get the glass, and they were selling them. And Sandy, is that right? Do you remember our
that's
parents
right.
telling us that?
Oh yeah.
And so
That
I
was
just
my era.
I just got to the. That's my era. Well, not the Depression, but my grandmother was in the. I'm 77, so the Depression was before me. Okay.
Oh, well, I'm
Pam,
85, so I was there.
you were there. Okay. Been there, done that, huh? Okay. Pam?
Yeah, so when you said that, during COVID, you couldn't buy canning jars. We went everywhere.
That's right.
Even on Amazon, you could not buy canning jars. And then they came out with a cheap grade one that cracked and split.
Yep.
And you bought them and they were already chipped. So I'm just finding
You're
this
right.
year, I don't have a problem buying canning jars, but until maybe I did buy some last year, but not a lot. But this year, you could buy a lot of them. But before that, during COVID, you couldn't get them.
Mm-mm.
And you can't. You're right. And so let me tell you, what I did. I'm living in this temporary apartment that's become permanent. And so there's no way I could store them. I mean, I have 150 boxes already. There's no way I could store them. So I called my institute in Idaho and I said to Sharon, can you get me canning jars? Oh yeah, they're all over here. Why? I said, you buy me 10 dozen canning jars. I'll send you the money and store them in my storage unit because I still have a storage unit in Idaho. So that's what she did. So when I get settled and we get our blessing that we're all waiting for, I'm just going to have her ship them UPS because I
yeah.
know that later on we're not going to be able to get them. So she's storing 10 dozen canning jars in various sizes for me. And that's the only way that I knew how to do it because I can't store them. So somebody else had a question.
Linda.
I would,
Did somebody have a question?
I
Linda,
was
go
gonna-
ahead. Whoops. Hold on a
Okay.
minute, Nancy.
Okay,
Linda?
I noticed that these called for kosher salt and I had to go buy that because I didn't have it. Do you always use the kosher salt in pickling?
I always do. My mother always did. All of my canning books say use kosher. The actual reason for that, I really don't know. But I've never canned without kosher salt. Yeah, I think it's very important. But I don't know why. I mean, if you buy the old Ball canning jar books, they all say kosher. Yeah. Okay, I'll catch you in a minute, Jorgen. Nancy, you had a question.
that was a really good question from Linda, or about the
was.
salt. No, I was just gonna add real quick, kind of on the canning jars. You answered something that I never understood. My mother-in-law, and I'm 76 years old, so when she passed away in Michigan, we cleaned out her basement. She must have had half a basement with jars. And I never
Jars.
understood it until you just explained it to me. So it's like, okay, I wish we had kept them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing when my grandma passed away, but now I literally have them. And I think Sharon bought some more this summer for me because she said, oh, I got some more of those jars you wanted. I don't know how many, but they're in my storage unit in Idaho. I know it sounds silly, but I'm not going to be caught without them again.
I wonder if they have them
Okay,
in
Jorgen,
Utah, but anyway,
Can you
in
explain
where?
this?
Utah. My son goes up there all the time, so I thought maybe he could buy me some.
Yeah, you can buy some just about anywhere right now. Jorgen, go ahead.
This salt, what can you explain what kosher salt is?
Wow. Kosher salt is a salt that is used a lot by Jewish people.
Mhm.
It's usually bought in Jewish stores out of the country. In the US, you can buy it in any grocery store. It's just a different, how would I describe it? It's a different, wow, it's rougher.
Oh.
It's coarse. It's coarse, and it's made from purified. I think it's purified rock salt. It doesn't contain iodine in it.
So
Right.
I'm
It
looking it
doesn't
up.
contain iodine. It's just regular salt. Yeah, go ahead, Dawn. I'm curious so that we
yeah.
can answer Jorgen here.
It says it's salt mine, just like the other types of salt. The difference is that the mining, processing, and packaging happens under strict Jewish guidelines, meaning that there's no additives or chemical elements that are added to the salt that may go against kosher tradition. So it's made solely from sodium chloride, and it doesn't contain any additives or iodine, like what Lena said. No
Like
iodine.
the regular table salt. Right, right.
Right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does that help, Jorgen?
Yes, I'm curious, but can you taste the difference for example, for Himalaya salt and this kosher salt?
I don't taste any difference. No,
Okay.
no. But I do notice something different. If you take pink Himalayan, which I use for everything else, and I make it in the brine, because I have done that when I didn't have the kosher, the pink Himalayan keeps accumulating. I'll stir it and it disappears, and I think it's melted. And then it accumulates on the bottom of the pan, where the kosher doesn't do that. It completely dissolves. So there's something different in the way they mine it or the way the minerals are in that particular salt.
Thank
So
you.
kosher salt it's KOSHER, kosher.
I
Yeah,
would
Dr.
does
think
that
that
help?
Yes, thank you.
It would seem like
You're
the
welcome.
iodine would be good for us. I wonder why.
No, not
No?
that way. No.
No.
Someday I'll do a class on why they
Okay.
added iodine to salt.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, you don't want that. Okay,
Doc-
Nancy?
Dr. Gloria, I'm looking at a box. I've had
Yes,
this
ma'am.
for a long, long time. And it says salt, but then it says yellow prusinate, Prussiate of soda, which is an anti-caking agent. So I wonder what you're saying, how it doesn't stay whole. I'm not sure what that is, but
I
this
don't
is
know what
called-
that is either. Mine doesn't say that. Mine just says kosher salt.
This
It
is
doesn't
just
have anything else in it,
Morton,
so.
and it's quite old, and it says kosher for Passover, so Jewish.
Yeah, mine's Morton too, but it doesn't say that. But I know that a lot of my friends through the years have been Jewish, and we always celebrated the Jewish holidays and then the Christian holidays, and they always use kosher salt. And I tasted it to see if there was any difference. I've never found a difference in flavor, but I did notice a difference in the way it dissolves. The pink Himalayan does not dissolve good in the brine, and the kosher does. So that tells us something, I think. If it completely dissolves, it's got to be better for us than something that starts floating down to the bottom of the pan again. But there you go.
Do you
Those are
think
great questions and great exchanges. Pardon?
Do you think there's a shelf life? I've really had this for a long time, looking at the date.
No. There's no
Okay.
shelf life. Nope.
Okay.
And I don't know if I've ever shared with you. I used to collect salt. My patients used to bring me salt from every country they'd go to, and every country I went to. So the black salt from the volcanoes in Hawaii and the salt from the Turks and Caicos Islands, it all tastes different. And when I used to have dinner parties, which I did a lot, I had the little salt cellars, and I would give maybe a piece of salmon, let's say, to somebody, and they would put a little bit of the different salt. I would label them. It's really a fun party to have. And they would taste it and go, wow, that's really good, real different. Then they'd go to the next salt for the next bite, and it changes again. So it's a fun thing to do because, like Hawaii has 5 or 6 different kinds of salts from different volcanic action. And when I was, in every country, the salt is different. In every region, it's different, depending on, the volcanic action, the soil, whatever. So if you ever want to have fun with that, start collecting salts and then just, taste it on different things, especially like chicken or fish. It's a lot of fun to do. That was part of my friends always used to say they'd love to come to my dinner parties because they always got dinner with education as a side dish. So then they'd all go out and want to buy different salt. And you can buy different salt from the saltworks.com online. I think they're in Oregon. They have every kind you can imagine. What do you have, Don? Share it with us.
Hey, so this is a black lava salt from Hawaii. And what's interesting about it is it's infused with hickory and activated charcoal. So, the charcoal is supposed to be good for digestion, and it's also used to treat ulcers and acid reflux. And then it says says that chefs love to use it as a finishing salt. So it's kind of cool.
You're absolutely right, but there's one other thing that is good for, and I've had the same one. I don't have any now. Is that, remember, the charcoal is used as a detox to kind of clean out the intestinal tract, and so that salt is healthier in that region. See, and it's volcanic black salt. So anybody going to Hawaii, bring back some salt. Or have somebody bring you some. My patients or my friends used to say, well, I'm going to such and such. What would you like me to bring you? Salt. After a while, they didn't even ask. They would buy whatever kind of salt was locally mined. And yeah, and it was like, okay, next time they'd come to the clinic, I'd have all these cute little packages with different salts. It was a lot of fun. And then I would share with them recipes and how to try it and whatever. So it makes it fun. If you look at cooking as an adventure, not as oh God, I got to cook dinner tonight. And not that we don't all feel that way sometimes, but if you look at it as a healthy therapy and an adventure, it does become fun. Trust me, it does become fun. Does that help you all? Did you enjoy that? I love our exchanges because we all help each other here. So Lena, do you have next week's recipe ready?
I do. Next week we were doing
Oh,
drunken
goodness.
salmon. Now, this is going to require some prep work beforehand. According to the recipe, you're going to want to make the marinade ahead of time because you're actually going to be marinating. The salmon's going to be in the marinade for about 30 minutes. So you're going to want to have that marinade made ahead of time. And it looks
isn't that
delicious.
with bourbon sauce?
It is with bourbon
Isn't that
sauce.
the one with bourbon sauce? Bourbon
Yes.
sauce. So remember, I mentioned to you when we had alcohol. Thank you, Lena. I'm glad you did that. When we had alcohol before that you don't normally have in the house, I bought the little bottles from the liquor store that sells the size you get on airplanes. And
Oh,
that's how I
that's a good
bought the
idea.
bourbon. So I didn't have to spend. What was that?
A good idea.
Good idea, because then you don't have to, you don't have to buy the big bottles. So I have rum and bourbon and, all kinds of different little liquors, but just in that little bottle, I can usually get 2 or 3 recipes. And you're not buying the big bottle of liquor that I don't drink. So you have a whole week to find your bourbon. Get your bourbon, because once you have bourbon sauce, it's addicting. It's absolutely addicting. It's not low in sugar, but you're not going to use a lot. You're going to use it just as a little glaze on top. It isn't low in sugar, but oh my God, is it addicting. You'll love it. It's really good. So get yourself a nice piece of salmon. And right now it is in season, which is why I did it in August, because it's the run of the salmon right now from the Pacific Northwest, from Alaska. So right now is salmon season in most places. So get your salmon ahead of time. You can freeze it and use it that day if you don't go shopping that moment. Okay. Thank you all, Lena. You did a
Right.
fabulous job again. Thank you for
Thank you.
all that information you gave beforehand and after. And Pam, did you enjoy that?
I did, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't think you've been on our cooking show, have you?
I was on one a long time ago and I'm trying to think what it was. I can't remember, but I did
Did
come
you
out.
make it?
I don't remember what it was.
What it was? Okay. Well, thank you for giving us another look, and enjoy your pickled onions if you decide to make them, and let us know on the next show. Okay.
Hey, great,
Next
thank
Love
week
to
you.
see you
is
next
really
week.
fabulous. So
Thank you.
yeah, do get your salmon and get your bourbon. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
God bless. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks again,
Thanks
Lena,
for
for a
coming.
great job. Thank you.
Thank you.